What's up, guys? Welcome to the Stats Free Sports channel. Here to bring you a video discussing why I believe Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions should make a power move at the NFL trade deadline. Now, let's get into it. I've been a real big fan of Brad Holmes and the Lions the last couple years. Him and Dan Campbell started together in 2021. And I'm not a Lions fan. I'm a Falcons fan, but I've been making videos on the Lions throughout the last couple years. Right? Did one last year on Dan Campbell should be the guy long term. I did another video about how I love the way Brad Holmes is drafting, and that was prior to them getting Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta and this group from last year, from this past season, this past summer, excuse me. But and I love the way, and I researched, I looked into it on the development strategy of Brad Holmes and the Lions coaching staff. They love chemistry, they love team chemistry, and they love developing and accruing draft picks to use in the draft, right? I understand all that. But they have a great story. Going from one of the league's worst to a very good team. But I think there's one more jump to be made for the Lions team to really be taken all the way serious, to really be a contender, to go from a very good team to a great team. I think the trade deadline is where it happens, and it happens this year if it is going to happen. I think the injuries that they have, certain players banged up, some of the free agent signings that they made, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson banged up, Emmanuel Mosley banged up, not getting a bunch of pressures from the edge rushers. Also, the running backs banged up. They got a bunch of guys, a bunch of pieces in a bunch of different spots banged up, right, or injured for a good little while. And I think they have to make a move at one or two spots. You got running back, you got receiver. And speaking of receiver, I did a video early September. I'm probably wrong. It probably won't happen. The chances are very. It was a long shot when I did the video, but early September when the news happened about Mike Evans being upset about not getting the contract, and I jumped on that news saying he would be traded during the trade deadline, and I thought the Lions made a great fit. Lions fans jumped on me though about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson, which I know they have already, but and I know the scheme they run, they don't really use that many wide receivers. But I still would have loved to see, move Amon more to the slot, which does often as well now. Jameson as your outside and Mike Evans your outside also. But like I said, it might not happen now. I understand that. But I thought it was a good idea during that time. But I still think a receiver could be had. You have Khalif Raymond, who's built like a slot receiver. But if you look at his numbers and look at how he plays, he does more, he performs more on the outside as an outside receiver. So I think a guy like Hunter Renfrow, from the Raiders, would make a lot of sense there. Going back to the running back injuries, Jahmyr Gibbs had a little spurt of injuries. Dave Montgomery a little banged up. I think going for a guy like Dalvin Cook, bring him back to the NFC North. He's been there his whole career, except for now. Obviously he's in the AFC East now with the Jets, not doing nothing much really, behind Brees Hall. So it's like, okay, bring Dalvin Cook in, have him be the third wheel. Once everyone's completely healthy, have him be the third wheel to Jahmyr Gibbs, have him be the third wheel to David Montgomery. Makes sense also. But as of right now, he'll be, probably 1A, 1B option right there with Jahmyr Gibbs until everyone is back fully healthy. So Dalvin Cook to me makes sense. Deontay Foreman from the Chicago Bears, division rival, to me as well makes sense. A bigger back, strong back. I feel like even with Montgomery there, they're trying to still replace what they got from Jamal Williams from the Saints last year. Led the league in rushing in rushing touchdowns. I think Deontay Foreman could make a lot of sense also. Also going to wide receiver, back to receiver. If not Renfro, I like Kendrick Bourne from the Patriots. There's a bunch of guys out there that could be had for that Panthers for the Lions offensively. They go into the defense also. As I mentioned earlier, the cornerback injuries or the DB injuries. You have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on a 1-year deal, Emmanuel Mosley on a 1-year deal. Both players banged up. Mosley probably won't, be back good again until next season. Johnson, still banged up, but should be back soon. I think, going for a corner, like Dante Jackson from the Panthers, going for a corner like Jalen Johnson from the division rival Bears. Which and the interdivision trades aren't new to the Lions. Obviously, you know their history, which is just last year they traded star tight end T.J. Hawkinson to the Minnesota Vikings in the same division. So they see him 2 times a year, and they were fine with doing what they did and trading him away, and they did a good job. Even when they traded him mid-season last year, their tight ends, I forgot their names, but it was a couple of the guys stepped up and they played pretty well. So it's like they like I said, it's tough when you do the draft strategy and the draft greatness that they've done the last couple of years, that being Brad Holmes and the whole entire organization for the draft of the Lions drafts. But as I said, I think you have to make a move at the trade deadline to really cement yourself as a real deal team. The Eagles made a move for Kevin Byard. And the rumor is they're not quite done yet. So you don't want to be outshined by the real contenders, the Eagles, the Niners, the Cowboys. The Cowboys might stand pat, but the Niners and Eagles are the main two teams. Those teams will most likely get better some way somehow, whether it be big or small. They're gonna get better. I think the Lions should also follow suit and do the same. And Jalen Johnson, Dalvin Cook, Hunter Renfro, Mike Evans, another Pat, Chase Young, Montez Sweat. The list goes on. The guys at certain positions that they could name, but I'm real heavy on the Lions getting better some ways somehow. Like I said, I'm not even a Lions fan, but I like teams when they're aggressive. I love when the Rams were aggressive a couple years ago and they won the title. I love when the Eagles are super aggressive almost every year, and they're in the hunt, especially last year and also this year. They're in the hunt and they're a dominant team. I think the Lions could do the same thing. And Aiden Hutchinson to me needs help on that front seven, on the edge spot. And I know the edge spot is they came alive a little bit, especially against my Falcons. I think they had 5 or 6 sacks against my Falcons, but that was an outlier game. That was one game they finally came alive. They finally had a lot of time to rush the passer. Excuse me, to rush the passer, but they haven't done that really since. So I think adding a legit opposite end to Aiden Hutchinson makes a lot of sense. It just depends on who you want. Danielle Hunter from the Vikings, another division rival. You got Montez Sweat, Chase Young, Danico Autry from the Titans. I did a YouTube short on him yesterday, saying he should be somewhere in the mix of a contending team, uh, being traded for a 10-year vet on a 1-year deal. I think he makes a lot of sense for a bunch of teams also if they strike out on getting the bigger name, on getting the younger guys also. So, the Nico Autry could be a name. Jerry Hughes from the Texans could be a name. So I think some way, somehow, the Lions need to get better. And like I said, I love what they've been doing. I've been a big advocate of Brad Holmes, excuse me, and how he's been doing it through the draft. Sam Laporta, the linebacker, forgot his name, Jack Campbell, I think, was a controversial pick for some people. Jahmyr Gibbs, great pick. Not quite panned out yet, but like I said this pre-draft. I'm a big Bijan Robinson fan. I'm glad we got him, but I wanted Gibbs. I wanted Gibbs too. I wanted Gibbs before I got Bijan. I might have been wrong there. Might have been tripping, but I'm happy that we got Bijan. But I really did like Gibbs a lot, coming from Bama and Georgia Tech the previous years prior to Bama. So they've been in the years prior as well. They've been making great moves during the draft. I want to see them, make their next step to being a real legit team. So that's it for video, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe. I will see you guys next time. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Stats Free Sports channel. Here to bring you a video discussing why I believe Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions should make a power move at the NFL trade deadline. Now, let's get into it. So, I've been a real big fan of Brad Holmes and the Lions the last couple years. Him and Dan Campbell started together in 2021. And I'm not a Lions fan. I'm a Falcons fan, but I've been making videos on the Lions throughout the last couple years. Right, did one last year on Dan Campbell should be the guy long term. I did another video about how I love the way Brad Holmes is drafting, and that was prior to them getting Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta and this group from this past season, this past summer, excuse me. But and I love the way, and I researched, I looked into it on the development strategy of Brad Holmes and the Lions coaching staff. They love chemistry, they love team chemistry, and they love developing and acquiring draft picks to use in the draft, right? I understand all that. But they have a great story. Going from one of the league's worst to a very good team. But I think there's one more jump to be made for the Lions team to really be taken all the way serious, to really be a contender, to go from a very good team to a great team. And I think the trade deadline is where it happens, and it happens this year if it is going to happen. I think the injuries that they have, certain players banged up, some of the free agent signings that they made, Chauncey Gardner Johnson banged up, Emmanuel Moses.